Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dave Alexandro, and Chuck Marty, Stephanie O'Day, and I are so happy to be with you today. In this webinar, we'll be focusing primarily on the enhancements to the user experience in EdSight Secure. We'll provide a brief overview of EdSight Secure before summarizing some of the new features in our secure reports. In the final portion of today's session, Stephanie will do a live demo to highlight the most important components of the enhanced reporting system. Chuck, Stephanie, and I are consultants in the Performance Office at the Connecticut State Department of Education. We want to thank all of you for joining us for this webinar. Before we begin the session, we would like to recognize the great work, dedication, and commitment of all of you to meet the students, families, and staff members' needs this year. We hope that you and your families are remaining healthy and safe, and that you will have some time to relax this weekend. Please let us know how we can help you navigate through the school year and anything we can do, especially as it relates to these tools to help your students. So today we're going to start with an overview of EdSight Secure, and then we're going to quickly turn into the new enhancements. We'll go over the reports that are available, many of the new features that are in the reports, and Stephanie, as I mentioned, will do a live demo. We'll leave time at the end for questions, and we also have a slide with additional resources that you can refer back to after today's session. So what is EdSight Secure? It's our secure online data portal, and it's for designated district staff. It's a way for those authorized users to access student-level data. Beyond sharing data securely, EdSight Secure is a data analytics and visualization tool. So it includes a lot of charts and data tables, opportunities for you to filter, disaggregate, export, and really engage and explore the data. So we really encourage you to use EdSight Secure because it has a wealth of information beyond what's in the EdSight public data portal. So this slide is for those of you who don't have access already. We do have a process that begins with the superintendent designating which individuals in the district will be authorized to access EdSight Secure. Privileges are granted either at the school or the district level. Next, your district security manager will create the account or assign roles depending on what level of access you should have. Then within an hour, you'll be able to log in and access all of this information. And you can see at the bottom of the slide, we've provided a link. So if you don't know who your LEA security manager is, just click that link and there is a full list for the entire state. So what reports are available in EdSight Secure? You can see that we group them into three sections: students, educators, and performance. So we're going to be much more general in today's session, but we do encourage you to explore the full catalog of reports. You can see for some of the more experienced EdSight Secure users, you'll see that there is a new English learner status report in the student section, and also the FAFSA completion report has also been used quite a bit recently with the FAFSA challenge that the governor initiated. So please explore these student level reports because we do have, as I mentioned, a wealth of data beyond what's available in EdSight Public. So many people have asked, why the upgrade? Why now? One of the main drivers of this decision was what Adobe is referring to, the Adobe Flash end of life. So that software is no longer supported. And since our report design software was Flash-based, report design for us was no longer supported. And that included not only new reports, but also updates to the existing reports. So since we didn't have those components available anymore, it really made sense for us to do that upgrade. And thankfully, the upgrade comes with enhancements and fixes So we work with SAS. The product that's behind all of the reports is called VIA, and this upgrade, as I mentioned, does include many enhancements, and you're going to see many of them in today's session. And now I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie, and she's going to cover some of the new features in this new reporting system.
Thank you, Dave, and welcome to everyone. I noticed also that we had some of our district testers, people who helped us test the system, online with us today. So thank you to all of those individuals for their invaluable feedback. We so appreciate the partnership and just willingness to jump in and help us test the new system and work out some of the little quirks that we're noticing. So some of the suggestions that were made by those testers won't be implemented right this week. We want to leave this new enhanced version, this upgraded version in place for a week to kind of work out some kinks in the technology as far as access, but we'll continue to address those suggestions in starting next week. So if you commented about something and you don't see that it's been changed yet, just know that we're working on it. We kind of want to let the system stabilize for a week. We know there have been some firewall issues with logging on, so we're going to be kind of letting it settle for this week, and then next week we'll begin adding some additional enhancements. So what is new with this upgraded EdSight Secure? Well, we'll go over logging in. Logging in is mainly the same. You'll just notice that the login screen looks a little different. We'll go over that. And we'll also talk about navigating and really emphasize the need to use that Welcome to EdSight Secure report, or what we call the dashboard, to navigate between reports. We'll explain why it's a little more important to rely on that dashboard in this enhanced EdSight Secure, this upgraded EdSight Secure, than it was even in the past. We'll cover all the new ways you can interact with charts and tables that weren't available in the prior version of EdSight Secure. We'll look at the undo and redo button, and you might be asking why that's a separate bullet point here. We're very excited about this because for a reason that we couldn't really understand, it did not exist prior to this upgrade. And for us designing reports for all of you in the background, that was a really big something we missed. We couldn't undo any of our changes. So this is a big enhancement, and I think you'll find it very helpful in the viewing of the reports as well. We'll talk about view settings. They're saved now, and we'll explain what that means. And we'll look at printing, exporting, and saving in the enhanced EdSight Secure, the upgraded EdSight Secure. Okay, logging in, I briefly mentioned. You'll use that same address, so you shouldn't need to change your bookmarks. However, I say shouldn't because we have had a few, I want to say only maybe 2 or 3 emails I've seen come across the EdSight inbox where users had text after the ct.gov. So if there is something in your favorite after the ct.gov, if it says Visual Analytics Hub, and you're not able to get to the logon screen, you're going to delete that and you're just going to use this basic link. Again, if you forget this link, you can also Google EdSight Secure and you'll have a link. It's the first, I believe it's still the first item in that Google search. So you just click on this and you should be brought to that home page. Again, if you're having issues, delete your favorite, go back to just this simple link and re-favorite it, and you should be okay. If you are experiencing any other issues or getting any error messages, please email us. We put the email at the end of this presentation. It's edsight.sde@ct.gov. And you can actually also just go to the EdSight public homepage, and there's a link to email us there that gets you to that email as well. Once you get to this logon screen, hopefully it doesn't really give you a problem. Again, it's just been a few users that I've heard from. But once you get to that logon screen, it'll look slightly different, but your user ID and password are the same. Now, navigating again and logging in, there are a few little new caveats. If your session times out, we have a customization in this software that brings you to that dashboard. Unfortunately, if your session times out and you don't close your browser tab, you won't be brought back to the Welcome to EdSight Secure dashboard. So what you need to do is ensure that if your session times out, you close that browser tab. You don't have to actually close the entire browser window. We know a lot of times you have so many tabs up and you're working in a lot of different applications that you don't want to close that entire browser window, but you do need to close that tab, open a new tab, and log back in. So that should ensure that you get back to that Welcome to EdSight Secure dashboard. Again, this is just re-emphasizing, this is what you should see when you log on, and this is what we really want you to use to navigate between reports so that you don't end up in an unintended report where filters haven't been sent to the report to give you the visualization that you are supposed to be seeing. A great enhancement that I really enjoy are these interactive breadcrumbs. So once you navigate from the Welcome to EdSight Secure report to a different report, in this screenshot, it's Early Indication Tool, you'll notice that this Welcome to EdSight Secure, if you hover over it, has an underline. It becomes an active link to get you right back to that dashboard. So you can just click right there, you're back to the dashboard, and you can navigate to a new report. The only place we have to be careful about these interactive breadcrumbs is when you're working with student summary. When you're working with student summary, because we have different versions dependent on the model or the grades in which a student was in at time of modeling, you have to be very careful and you have to close that model report before navigating back to student summary, select a student. So what you do is outlined right here in this screenshot. You're going to select, it's actually called opened reports, this 3 for our example in the upper right-hand corner. Then you're going to select close report, the little X next to the student summary version. So this could either say Model 1, Model 2, Model 3, Model 4, or history only. That's what you'll close. You can leave the other 2 reports open, and then you can use that interactive breadcrumb to navigate and select a new student whose summary you'd like to view. The problem is if you leave this model open and go into a different model, the filters don't act as we intended, and you'll get unexpected results when viewing the student summary. So interactive breadcrumbs, great. Just be careful when you're working with student summary because you have to close the version in order to navigate back and select a new student. And if you have any questions about any of this, plop them right in the chat. We'll review, and when I do the live demo, I can even, we can address some of those questions possibly in that as well. Okay, with that, I am going to switch it over to, or hand it over rather, to Chuck to talk about some of the new ways you can interact with charts and tables.
Thanks, Stephanie. Good afternoon. If you recall, in the old world, there wasn't much you could do to change the look of charts and tables in EdSight Secure, but now this upgrade offers you some options. I'm going to spend a few minutes highlighting some of the more interactive features in our reports. For starters, don't like that we chose how your data would be sorted on the chart? Ha! Now you can change that. Right-click on the chart, select Sort, and select the variable you want to resort as well as the direction. In this slide, the green, yellow, and red support levels can be reversed, as can the grade range in this chart. If you think that was exciting, hold on to your mouse. You can also change how the charts group data visually. Tired of all the stacked bars, report after report of stacked bars? How much can we expect you to take? Right-click, select Grouping Style, and change the chart from a stacked bar to a clustered bar. The chart now appears as a set of horizontal bars for each of the school years. The clustered bar emphasizes the differences in performance level, but also lets you see the trends. The stacked bar emphasizes the composition, but interior widths are trickier to compare over time. Too much data clogging up the visual delight of the chart? Want viewers to focus on the bigger picture? Right-click on the chart, select Labels, and click on Segment Labels to remove the data labels from each segment in the stacked bar chart. You can add them back on the fly as well. Not that you'd want data labels on the fly. Toggle data labels to add or remove them from the chart axes as well. Here it's the 0 to 100%. Hours of fun. Chart too small? Can't find your reading glasses? Want the underlying data? Click on the two arrows in the upper right-hand corner of the chart to maximize it and bring up a table of detailed data. Now, clicking on any segment in the chart highlights the corresponding row of data in the table below. The table can be sorted by any two columns. To do this, right-click on the table and select Sort and/or Secondary Sort. With the Maximize option, you gain size and detail, but you lose one piece of functionality. In its minimized form, this chart is linked to an info window table that has all the data for students in that segment. Maximizing disables that option. Who knows why? One complaint that we've received, maybe the only complaint, well, except about my humor, was that our tables are too wide. There's an EIT table with 26 columns, and you have to keep scrolling left and right to see the fields you want. No more. SAS has added the ability to freeze panes as you can in Excel. So right-click on a column in the table, select Freeze All Columns to the left, and presto. You can move all the columns to bring your desired column next to the reference column, name, SASIT, etc. It's about time. Another addition is the ability to move columns in a table. So you get what's most important to you where you want it, because it's always just about you. And if you export the table to Excel, it will keep your preferred order of columns. Close the report, and your column order is preserved the next time you open the report. We won't be insulted if you want to change them. Well, Dave gets a little persnickety, but he'll get over it. You can also toggle whether your list table shows aggregations at the bottom. Right-click on the table, select Show Totals, and the preset aggregations for numeric columns, here, average attendance rate, maximum school moves, sum of on-time flag, for example, appear at the bottom. These recalculate every time you change a filter. Select students with high needs in the filter, and the aggregations will reflect this subset of students. Very handy for quickly getting answers to how did our students with high needs do with an do on Smarter Balanced ELA. Alexa can't help you there. She's not sure about that. If you like a combination of tables and charts, reading and seeing, if you will, try Add Cell Graph. Right-click on a column in the table. Here I've chosen attendance rate last year. Select Add Cell Graph and select a bar chart or a heat map. That one's a bit weird. This allows you the smorgasbord of tabular data and visual keys that will make you the envy of data geeks everywhere. And finally, to further enhance your data diving experience, SAS has added undo and redo buttons to every page of the reports. Talk about a game changer. Make a frivolous change that you don't like, or several. Click on the undo arrow once, twice, or however many mistakes you'd like to forget. Change your mind? Oh, how fickle you can be sometimes. Click on redo. It even works on filters. So here in this slide, I used our numeric filters in the EIT to select students across 3 attendance ranges of 90 to 95%, 85 to 90, and 80 to 85. Hitting the undo let me see a 10% range and then a 5% range. Looking at the aggregations at the bottom lets me quickly see the Smarter Balanced ELA score averages by attendance range. Mostly it helps you get back to the place you want to be. If we only had that in real life. Now, I'd like to turn the presentation back to Dave. Dave, wake up, Dave.
Thanks, Chuck. I just want to remind everybody, I know many of you have a long weekend ahead, and this is not our first webinar. So if you're done watching Cobra Kai, we invite you to binge watch some of our early webinars about the early indication tool for teachers, the student summary. So there are a number of them out there. So hours of viewing pleasure. The next piece that I'm going to talk about will be kind of the basics of viewing reports. One of the, I think, one of the things on the wish list in our old system was the ability to be able to go back and view a report using the same filters and settings that you had basically set up last time you were in the report. So now we wanted to point out that view settings are saved between sessions. So that includes the page you're viewing, prompt values, and several other options on the screen. Sometimes you'll find yourself kind of so deep within the filters that you wish you can get back to the original form of the report. In this slide, I just wanted to show you the way that you would do that. So in the top of every report in EdSight Secure, you'll always see what's called oftentimes the main menu, which are those three vertical dots. So that ellipsis, or sometimes referred to as the snowman icon, if you click on that, there will be an option to restore default report state. And that option will only be there if you're not already in the default report state. So if you're in there for the first time, you won't see that option. Once you've changed anything within a report, then you would have that option to restore it. In the next slide, the next few slides, I wanted to get into exporting because that's a piece that's often really important when you're dealing with these big data sets and you want to be able to, whether you want to join it to other data you have, perhaps in PowerSchool or other student information systems, or just work with the data in a different software. Sometimes you're interested in printing, sometimes you're interested in exporting. So we'll cover both of those today. So in the old system, you remember there would be these double chevrons for users of the old system. So it's a little bit easier now. The easiest way, whenever you're working in a table, graph, or analytics object, and you want to export the underlying data, you can just right-click on that object, and then you can see here I've provided the shortcut menu option. You'll see there's an export data option. That option will also be available whenever you're working in, as I mentioned, a table, graph, or analytics object. When you click on that object in the top right-hand corner, this little snowman icon, the three vertical dots, the vertical ellipsis there, that'll appear, and that'll also have a shortcut menu option providing an export data option. So once you choose that option, then you'll be presented with a dialog box. I wanted to touch on one piece that's really important when it comes to exporting, because some of the larger districts run into issues when they're looking at larger data sets. So here's an example of that. At any time when you're working in a list table or a data table, when you start scrolling that vertical scroll bar, you can see how many records are currently being shown. So in this screenshot here, I've taken a shot of a data table I'm working with that has 12,000 rows. There's also a little information icon appearing at the bottom there. That blue information icon, that lowercase I, when I click on it, it provides a little bit more information, and it says that not all of the data appears because the client query row limit exceeds the server threshold. Basically, that's a limit that SAS puts on the data, mostly for mobile, to allow the reports to render a little bit more quickly. But it becomes an issue when you want to look at your larger data sets. We wanted to point out that even though the list table or the data table is only showing a more limited number of rows for those larger districts, you can export all of the records. So the next screenshot is actually the dialog window that appears when you click Export Data. And if you can't see it clearly on your screen right now, basically what I've highlighted in the top there is the row range. So the default row range matches the number of rows that were in the list table. So I was just looking at a table that had 12,000 rows. So now the dialog window is basically confirming that I want to export rows 1 through 12,000. But in reality, my district has over 30,000 students. So as long as I don't change that default, even though it says 1 to 12,000, if I click OK, after I choose whether I want the formatted data or the detailed data, usually the formatted data is sufficient. But once I click export, or I click OK to complete the export, now after I save that file wherever I'd like to save it, when I open it, I provided a little screenshot here that shows you that my Excel file has over 31,000 records. So in the event that you're in a larger district and you're getting that information message that says that the system is unable to show you all of the records, please just export, click through, and when you open the file, you'll see that all of your records have been exported that match the filters that you had set on your earlier screens. So that's a really important point, and a real issue we had with the earlier version of EdSight Secure. I'm going to touch briefly on printing reports. So the export would be used more when you want to use that data in another software, but sometimes you want to print reports, and in this case, you'd be exporting as a PDF. So you'd be creating a PDF. You could do that for an entire report, a page in a report, or even an object within any of the EdSight Secure reports. So essentially what you're doing is you're generating the PDF that you can then print. Just keep in mind that often Chuck mentioned that some of our reports have many columns of data. So sometimes scrolled content might not be printed when you generate the PDF. And also, if there are any fonts that your printing server does not support, those might also get changed in this process. But once you click through, you're going to be presented with a print to PDF dialog window. The first tab allows you to specify different options that you want for document setup. That includes everything as far as page numbers, the orientation, if you want to include appendices. So there are a number of options here, and some of the resources that we provide at the end of today's slide deck will allow you to kind of take a deeper dive into the different options with respect to generating or printing to PDF. The next slide shows the second tab of the print to PDF dialog window, and this allows you to select objects. So you can say, I'd like to print everything to the PDF, or you could select different components. So if you were to generate this print option at the entire report level, you can see that many checkboxes will be available to you. If you did it just within an object, then there won't be as many checkboxes available. So I just wanted to show that when you print at that top level, you will be presented with several options on the Select Objects tab. If you don't see the Select Objects tab, it just means that you're printing one object. Another piece that people are interested in oftentimes is the ability to save an image. So you can right-click on any list, table, crosstab, graph, or gauge and select Save Image. And that's true, I'd say, for most objects in EdSight Secure. So when you're working in a report and you'd like to do something, many of the things that Chuck talked about, many of the things that I'm going to be talking about, and then also many of the things that Stephanie will demonstrate in the demo, those options, I'd say more than 75% of the time, will be available by simply right-clicking. So here's an example where you're right-clicking on the object that you'd like to save, and there's a shortcut menu option, and there it is, Save Image. So this is useful if you want to include image, whether it's a report object or any of these pieces in a slide deck that you might be sharing with your staff. And these images will be saved as PNG files. You can see here I provided a snapshot on the bottom that shows you how the file name will be generated. So it includes a description of what you've saved an image of, and it also has a time and a date stamp. do ask that please don't save or share images with personal identifiable information. And so that's a really important piece because these EdSight secure reports, many of them do contain student information. So please don't save images of that information. Another area of interest is saving a report copy. So that's very helpful if you're working in a report and perhaps you have different filter settings that you use for different situations, and you'd like to save for the same report. You might want to save these different report settings or filter settings. So again, this idea of right-clicking will allow you to generate a shortcut menu option. So you can save a copy. In this case, I'm going to the main menu for the report, which is that top right-hand snowman icon, and you'll see that there's an option to save a copy. And the report is saved to what's called My Folder. So each of the users has a My Folder, and that report copy that's saved has a name that includes the report title as well as the date and time at which you created the copy. So the next question is, how do I access my folder? So whenever you're working in EdSight Secure, in addition to the snowman icon on the right, which has many options that will be helpful to you, there's also what's sometimes referred to as the hamburger icon, or the three horizontal lines in the top left of your EdSight Secure screen. So by clicking that hamburger icon, you'll see that there's an option that says Share and Collaborate. After you click on Share and Collaborate, that's where you'll see there'll be a My Folder option in the left-hand selections. And once you click on that, you'll see the report copy that you saved, and that will then allow you to double-click on the saved copy, and that will take you to the report with updated data for the settings that you saved. So that's a really useful piece of reporting, especially for the users that work with different filters across different reports. Okay, I'm going to turn it back to Steph. She's going to do a live demo.
Okay. And Chuck and Dave, if you can just monitor that chat and see if there's anything that people want to specifically see in the live demo, or any questions that come up while I'm going through it, I can always pause and address those right there as well. So what you see on the screen in front of us, everyone can see the Welcome to EdSight Secure. Chuck and Dave, can you see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So this should look very familiar. This is the new portal. I'm actually on our staging server, so don't pay attention to this address. And actually, give me 1 second because I actually need to change this report. Hold on 1 second. So we're using our staging server because we have some de-identified reports up there so that we can use them for demonstration purposes and not show the personally identifiable information that Dave was discussing earlier. So I was actually in the regular Welcome to EdSight, so I have to get to my de-identified version. I apologize for that. And here we go. Now you can see I'm in the de-identified version because I have this little text in the parentheses next to my Welcome to EdSight Secure. So this is that dashboard we talked about. We really want to emphasize that this is your hub. This is where you should be navigating all across to different reports, especially in this new tool, this new enhanced upgraded version of EdSight Secure. So you'll see that it's basically the same as our previous version. We have all of our reports linked from this page under those similar buckets, and it looks largely the same. We're going to be using that Smarter Balanced Achievement report. You can see that's the de-identified version as well here for our training and our demonstration now. So I will be clicking on this momentarily, but I do want to draw your attention to the top because you will see those interactive breadcrumbs appear once I move to the Smarter Balanced Achievement report. You'll see the opening report dialog in the middle of the screen. It will then tell you it's opening Smarter Balanced Achievement. And then momentarily, you'll see that interactive breadcrumb. So you not only see in bold the report that you are currently in, but you see the report that you began your navigation from. So that dashboard, that Welcome to EdSight Secure report or dashboard. Now you can click right on there. You'll see that the underline comes right up, letting you know that's a live link to get back. We'll do that. And here you are back at the dashboard. Now I just want to point out that that didn't actually close the Smarter Balanced Achievement report. And you can tell this by looking in the upper right of your screen. We referenced this in one of the earlier slides. This is the Opened Reports icon. When I hover over it, it says Opened Reports 2. If I click on it, you'll see I have my Welcome to EdSight Secure report and my Smarter Balanced Achievement report, both open. Now I can go ahead and close the Smarter Balanced Achievement report, but we really want to make sure you don't close that Welcome to EdSight Secure report, because again, that is your homepage, that's your dashboard, that's what we want you to use to navigate between reports. If you do click on this direct link to the Smarter Balanced Achievement report in here, it will reopen that Smarter Balanced Achievement report. However, you will lose those interactive breadcrumbs. So it's best to always start with a Welcome to EdSight Secure report and then click on the report of interest. This didn't open a new copy. You'll see I still have those two reports opened here, and I'm currently in the Smarter Balanced Achievement report, which is indicated by that little check mark there. Okay, so now this again looks much the same to what you're familiar with. We've made a few small changes in just the view. So whereas the ELA and math charts used to be stacked, now they're on the left and right of the screen. We just thought that made for better viewing, and we've added these segment labels. We'll get into that because you can interact with those. We'll get into that in a second. I do want to just review that you have what we used to refer to as tabs right across the top, those 6 tabs you're used to seeing. In the new version of software we're operating on now, that SaaS Via that Dave mentioned, these are actually called pages. So if you're looking up any helpful documents at any of the documents we provide you, these are now, we're no longer referring to them as tabs, but rather as pages. So we're in the report page, and you'll see that reference here too. Instead of print tab, it will say print page. That's something else that Dave referred to. So you'll see those 3 vertical dots, or as Dave called them, the snowman, and that's where I'm getting this menu. So we're in the report tab, and we're going to review some of those interactions with the charts that Chuck discussed. So again, you have some options here. We right click, which is really the easiest way, as Dave was describing. You right click and you see all the different options of how to interact with this chart. So we'll start with a sort, so you can see that. Chuck reviewed this already. When you hover over sort, you see all the objects, all the variables that are used in this chart, and then the check mark next to the current sort. So subgroup 1, you might be asking yourself, what is subgroup 1? Well, that's just referencing these drop downs at the right of the report, at the right of the charts, pardon me. So school year is actually subgroup 1. So right now we're sorted in descending order, which actually isn't the default view, so I must not have restored my defaults. But if I want to go back, you'll notice my math is sorted school year ascending. I can click on ascending, and now I'm back to my ascending sort order for year. As Chuck discussed, you can actually leave this dialog open and change some other sorts as well. So now I've changed the sort on performance level. Our favorite feature, one of my favorite features, is that undo button. So now my charts don't really match. I don't like this new sort order for my performance level. I go right up to the upper right and I can undo that. If I right click again, just right on the chart itself, I can look at that grouping style that Chuck reviewed with us. We have stacked versus clustered. There's that clustered view. My segment data labels are still there. If I'd rather have the labels on the end of the bars, I can remove the segment labels. Now you notice there are no labels. Right click again, and I can add data labels. Now you'll notice they're outside of the bar. If I were to go back to my stacked grouping style, the data label wouldn't be very helpful, so I'd want to change that back to my segment labels, and most likely take off my data labels too. Again, I'm just going quickly through these so that you can see all of the different options that were not previously available as far as interacting with these charts. Making the charts what you need for your presentations, for your work. We're really happy that they've added these enhancements. You can hide the legend as well. If I don't like that, I can put it back by using that undo or going right to the, it would say show legend here. I can also do that maximize view. So Chuck went over this in his slide as well. I'm just showing you the live version of it. If I select maximize, I can either do it from right clicking and selecting maximize or using this double out arrow. So again, there's some redundancy here in the right click versus the snowman icon or those 3 vertical dots, as well as the maximize. So if I maximize, as Chuck discussed, we now see the list table with the corresponding data below. We didn't have that in the last view, so this is kind of nice. And when I click on a segment in the chart, the corresponding row will be highlighted. Those 278 students that are represented in this section, in this segment of the bar chart. I can also hover and see that in the tooltip. And as Chuck mentioned, whereas in minimized view, you can double click on one of these segments to get an info window with the student information. When I try to do that in the maximized view, I get a warning that says page links cannot be executed while this object is maximized. So if I want to use that info window functionality, I just minimize. I should show you that again. That icon changed. It's called restore view. It's not actually called minimize. You can click on that, or again, you can right click and select restore view, get back to that original view, and then you can double click to get that info window. If you actually notice, when I was in that info window, my interactive breadcrumb even changed and it told me I was viewing student level data for ELA. Okay, now I'd like to take a look and let me check. I see some chats, so let me just look. Student summary, right. Okay. We can talk about student summary, but we don't have a de-identified version of student summary for the purposes of this demo. But we're more than happy to meet with you on a separate call and look at those together if you have any questions. So this selection out and we'll go to the student level data tab. This will just allow me to show you how to interact. And you notice I've already put some freezes on here and reordered columns. So I want to show you again that restore view. Restore default report state is what it's called. So here you know that I'm not in the default report state because this option is available to me. I went to the snowman, the 3 vertical dots in the upper right, I clicked, and I'm going to select that restore default report state. When I do that, you'll notice my freeze line is gone, will be gone, and my columns will reorder. It actually takes me all the way back to that report tab because that is the default view. So I'll go back and I'll see that now everything's back in the right order. I don't have my freeze anymore. And if I go up to those 3 dots in the upper right, I no longer see that option to restore default report state because I'm already in that default report state. So if you're wondering or if you've forgotten if you've made any selections, this is a quick way to tell. You just go here. If you don't see the option to restore default report state, you're at the default report state. So as Chuck said, if I want to say bring SACID to the beginning, I just click and drag. First name, I click and drag. Last name, I click and drag. And then if I want to freeze the columns, I simply right click and freeze all the columns to the left. My scroll bar then only appears on the unfrozen section. You see if I hover over here, there's no scrolling, and then I can scroll. Now another cool thing is I can drag additional columns. Say I want to drag middle name over. I can drag that to the frozen section right here without unfreezing and refreezing, and that scroll still works with the frozen columns. I am going to unfreeze all columns. So all I do there is right click and say unfreeze, and I'm clicking anywhere on this table. Now I only want to freeze the first few, and there I go. Another interaction that Chuck mentioned was adding a cell graph. So notice that this is only available on a numeric field. If I click, you'll see it here because I'm clicked on target. If I click on military family status, right click that is, I don't have that option because that's not a numeric field. So let's add it here to target. We'll add a bar cell graph. And now it doesn't look quite like it did when Chuck did his demo on the slide. We're not seeing the actual data value anymore, and this might not be what you want. This actually isn't how it's supposed to display. It's just an effect of the width of the column. So as soon as I make that width, increase that width, I'll see those numbers again, the actual data point, and then I have my cell graph as well. Quickly, I do want to return to that report tab and see how we're doing on time. We'll go back to that report tab. We'll look at the export of a chart first. So if we export the underlying data, again, I can do that with the 3 vertical dots, or I can right click and export data. You'll see the number of rows, you'll see the available columns, and I can export to Excel, TSV, or CSV. I can also print this object, and I'll just show you that the print dialog, as Dave was describing, you only see this one tab, document setup. You don't see selected objects because you're just printing that one object. If I go to the page itself, which is up here, so I'm in the report page, I look at those 3 vertical dots. If I want to print the page, then you'll see that second tab, select objects. So if you click on that, you can actually expand this and you can decide what you'd like to print. Maybe you do only want the drop downs and the ELA chart, so you can do that. Document setup, Dave talked about some of these options. I typically turn off cover page and appendix information, and I typically expand clipped and non-visible content, especially for those list tables or the student summary. Because what that does is it allows you to have a screenshot of what you see on the screen, potentially smaller because of the restrictions of the orientation and paper side, but then it actually expands anything that wasn't shown fully on that first page of the report in subsequent pages. So it will print out a list table, say, that wraps to a second page. So you will get all of those data. You'll just have a quick look on the first page and then everything else on subsequent pages. This is, again, a print to PDF. It's not a print to manual printer. It's a print to PDF, and you can save that. You can also print the entire report, as Dave discussed, by going up to those 3 vertical dots in the upper right, or that snowman, and clicking print. I'll go back to the student level data tab. Dave already discussed the export here, but again, you can right click and export, or you can use those 3 vertical dots in the upper right of the table and export data. You'll get those options. If you want additional fields that aren't shown in the table but are available to you in the underlying data, that's when you would select that detailed data, and then you can export those again. And as Dave discussed, with those larger data sets, you might have a limit on what's shown on the screen, but you should be able to see all of the rows in an export. We do have a couple of reports where we've been playing with limitations and doing some different modifications in the background. So if you are in a report and you aren't getting all of the records when you export, please let us know and we will address it. We have one outstanding issue now that we're going to be looking at next week. And let me just look at my list and see if I've covered everything. Quickly, we'll navigate to save a report copy. We're going to save a copy of this report. You'll notice it's telling me that Smarter Balanced Achievement is saved to my folder. This will go away, so I'm going to show you how to navigate to that report just the same way that Dave did. So what you're going to do is go to those 3 horizontal lines in the upper left. You'll click on that, and you'll go to that Share and Collaborate. Now notice I didn't close any of those reports that I had open. This is where you'll see the My folder. Now you notice I have a few versions of that Smarter Balanced Achievement report. The one that I most recently saved, obviously, is the 153, which gives me a good idea of how much time I have left. And that's saved with the date and time stamp. Again, that saves all of my selections as far as filters, reordering of columns, sort changes, all of those changes that we've made and we've experimented with. You can rename this, as Dave was suggesting. If you have different saved views that you want to keep for different purposes, you can right click and rename. You can open. And then all we need you to do is navigate back to the show list of applications and go to Explore and Visualize, and you'll find yourself back at that Welcome to EdSight Secure and Smarter Balanced Achievement report. If you want to go back to the dashboard, again, you have those interactive breadcrumbs right here. You click back and you're back to the dashboard. I do want to mention, and we talked about this, again, if you find yourself somewhere that you is unfamiliar or you're not sure how to get back to this dashboard, all you need to do is open a new tab, close your current tab, and log back in, and you should be brought right back to this dashboard. All right, Chuck and Dave, did I miss anything?
No, that was great, Stephanie. Just the one thing you had mentioned that users have asked about in the past is when you're in a list table view and they want to sort on multiple columns, like last name, then first name, then middle name, if they've gone away from the default sort and they want to get back to maybe sorting by name, just to show them how to do something like that.
Sure, excellent. We'll do that quickly. So right now you can see this little upward triangle is sorting, the sort is on the last name column. If I want to add first name to that, all I do is hold Control and click first name, and you'll notice a smaller triangle will appear in that column. So you can do that on multiple columns. Say then I want to sort by middle name. I'm just holding Control and clicking, and now I have the primary sort on last name and secondary sort on first name and middle name. Again, if then I really just want to go back to that default report state, I can click those 3 vertical dots in the upper right-hand corner and restore default report state. All right. So just to reiterate, we will be sending, and I started the recording late on this one. We have another session tomorrow, so I'll probably post the full recording of that. But we will have that available to you on the EdSight Secure, Welcome to EdSight Secure homepage next week. Probably put it down on the bottom somewhere so you can access that easily. We'll also send you the PDF copy of the presentation. I'll send it to all the users who are registered after this session. If anyone has any other questions and they'd rather ask, they can unmute themselves now and do so. We have 3 more minutes. Or if you're more comfortable, please feel free to type into the chat. Chuck and Dave, anything else you wanted to add?
No, I think that covers it.
No, yeah.
Well,
I think
oh, go
that
ahead,
was
Dave.
great.
All right. Well, we're very excited.
No, I said.
Go ahead. We're very excited to have been able to share this enhanced EdSight Secure with you. Again, if there are any questions, please feel free to email that edsight.sde@ct.gov. And then we've also included some references, some resources for you on the last page of the PDF that we'll be sending out shortly. The one thing we did include was a very detailed SAS Visual Analytics 8.5 viewing reports documentation right from SAS themselves. Now, some of the information in that document is only applicable to report designers, but if you have a question and aren't seeing it in the other documentation, try a search in that document and you may find some helpful information. Otherwise, I am going to check one more time and see if I have any other questions. Oh, thank you. Thank you for the messages. Great. We're glad you found it very helpful. And I think that will end it for us today. Chuck and Dave, any last words?
Just thank you all for attending and have a wonderful afternoon.
Yes, thank you.